Peter O'Toole finally tells the truth about co-stars Lawrence of Arabia. Peter O'Toole was born Peter Seamus O'Toole on August 2nd 1932, either in Connemara, County Galway or Lander in Leeds, Yorkshire, England. As Hezem at times playfully claimed, his early years were covered in a certain sense of mystery that fit his latter reputation as a man bigger than life, the son of Constance Jane Ferguson and Patrick Joseph O'Toole, a bookie and football player. Peter grew up in a home where strong personalities, cleverness, and a love of storytelling were there from the beginning. It was this mix of Irish humor, English toughness, and natural acting talent that would shape his artistic future. O'Toole's path to acting was not simple. After serving as a radio man in the Royal Navy, he thought about several careers before his unstoppable love for words, performance, and books pushed him toward the dramatic arts. He was accepted into the famous Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, in London, where he studied from 1952 to 1954. Among his classmates were future actors like Albert Finney and Alan Bates, who, like O'Toole, would help change British acting for a new generation. At RADA, O'Toole learned his craft, diving deep himself in Shakespeare, classic drama, and modern experimental works. Even as a student, he was known for his striking looks, tall, piercing, blue-eyed, and powerful, and for the amazing voice that would later captivate audiences on stage and screen. His early years on stage at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre showed an actor of incredible intensity and range. O'Toole could easily shift from Shakespeare's tragic heroes to modern mentally complex roles, proving himself as one of the most promising young actors of the 1950s. This foundation in classical theatre remained a key part of his career even after he moved to cinema. He wasn't just a performer but a craftsman who believed that every role needed complete emotional truth. The turning point in O'Toole's career came in 1962 when he was cast as T. Lawrence in David Lean's epic Lawrence of Arabia. The role turned him overnight into an international star. His performance, with its magnetic mixture of vulnerability, arrogance, brilliance, and pain, not only defined his career but also became one of the most iconic performances in film history. The film itself remains a towering achievement of cinema, but it was O'Toole's presence, haunting, magical, and unforgettable, that lifted it to legendary status. His piercing blue eyes against the desert background became one of the most unforgettable images in world cinema. For this role, he earned his first Academy Award nomination, and though he did not win, it made him as one of the finest actors of his generation. Throughout the following decades, O'Toole built a career defined by artistic bravery. He received a remarkable 8 Academy Award nominations without winning a competitive Oscar, making him one of the most nominated actors never to receive the prize directly. His performances in films such as Beckett 1964, The Lion in Winter 1968, Goodbye, Mr. Chips 1969, and The Ruling Class 1972 showed his unmatched versatility. He could play kings and weirdest, teachers and madmen, filling Gak with his trademark combination of intelligence, wit, and intensity. His later career success in My Favorite Year, 1982, showed his ability to turn self-mockery into brilliance, playing an aging, alcohol-soaked movie star with both humor and heartbreaking vulnerability. O'Toole's off-screen life was as colorful and stormy as many of his roles, known for his sharp wit, love of conversation, and love for partying. He was often linked with the Irish-ard drinking actors such as Richard Burton, Richard Harris, and Oliver Reed. Stories of his nights of excess became legendary. Yet, even in the chaos, his devotion to acting never stopped. He once joked, "I will not be a common man. I will stir the smooth sands of monotony," a statement that perfectly captured the philosophy by which he lived both on and off the stage. Despite health problems in later life, including serious illness that required major surgery, O'Toole never gave up his passion for performance. His late career work continued to shine, whether on stage in Shakespearean revival or on screen in films like Venus 2006, where his portrayal of an aging actor earned him his final Academy Award nomination. Even when weakness touched his body, his eyes still sparkled with the mischievous energy of a man who had lived fully, intensely, and fearlessly. In 2003, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences finally recognized his huge contributions to cinema with an honorary Oscar. True to form, O'Toole at first considered rejecting the award because he hoped still to win a competitive Oscar, but he finally acted, acknowledging the honor with charm and typical humor. It was a fitting recognition for a man who had given so much to the art of acting and inspired generations of performers. In 1959, at the age of 27 and still very much at the beginning of his journey into international stardom, Peter O'Toole married the Welsh actress Sin Phillips, a woman who was herself on the rise in theater world and who would later become a celebrated actress of stage, film, and television. Their union was one of those artistic pairings that fascinated the press of the time. A handsome, ambitious young actor known for his intensity and quick wit, and a striking, intelligent Welsh woman with a powerful presence of her own. Phillips would go on to play a bunch of powerful roles from classical theater to high-profile television dramas, and her marriage to O'Toole placed her directly in the whirlwind of his increasingly hectic and sometimes chaotic career. The couple had 2 daughters together, Kate and Patricia, who were born during the height of O'Toole's rise in the 1960s. Balancing fatherhood with the demands of international fame was not easy, but by all accounts, O'Toole deeply loved his children, even as his career took him across continents and into productions that kept him away from home for long stretches of time. The marriage, however, was not without its difficulties. O'Toole was already developing a reputation for heavy drinking, unpredictable moods, and a restless energy that made him both magnetic and at times difficult to live with. Phillips later wrote honestly about their life together in her memoirs, describing how the strain of O'Toole's stardom, his unpredictable leader, and his drinking habits often weighed on their family life. For 2 decades, they remained married, raising their daughters while navigating the storm of celebrity life. But by 1979, after 20 years together, their relationship had run its course and they divorced. The end of their marriage marked a turning point in O'Toole's personal life, closing a chapter defined as much by artistic triumph as by personal trouble. After the divorce, O'Toole continued to live passionately, if unconventionally. In the years that followed, he entered into a relationship with model Karen Brown. Though their romance was less publicized than his marriage to Sin Phillips, it was significant in that it brought him the joy of fatherhood on sea again. Together, O'Toole and Brown had a son, Lorcan, born in 1983 when O'Toole was already well into his 50s. The arrival of Lorcan was a bright moment for the actor who, despite his age and somewhat fragile health, found renewed purpose in raising a young child. Lorcan O'Toole grew up in the shadow of his father's legendary reputation, but eventually persuading himself, stepping into the world of film and television in his own right. Although the younger O'Toole never sought to copy his father's towering career, he inherited some of the same creative spirit and love of storytelling that had defined Peter's life. When reflecting back on his legendary role in Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, the film that launched him from relative unknown to international stardom, Peter O'Toole was often asked about the men and women he shared the screen with. For decades, O'Toole remained tactful, preferring to focus on the artistry of the production rather than reveal too much about the personalities behind it. Yet, in latter years, with the benefit of time and distance, he began to speak more openly about his co-stars, offering honest memories that combined admiration, frustration, and even a touch of dry humor. It was an extraordinary cast, O'Toole once remarked. And with extraordinary people, you get the full spectrum. Brilliance, vanity, generosity, and the occasional baldy nightmare. He often began with Alec Guinness, the already established giant of British acting, who played Prince Faisal. O'Toole confessed that working alongside Guinness was intimidating at first. Alec was a master technician, he said. His voice, his movements, all measured, all precise. You couldn't help but watch him and learn at the same time. O'Toole noted that Guinness's perfectionism somewhat clashed with the improvisational energy that O'Toole himself brought to the desert epic. Still, he admitted that sharing scenes with Guinness forced him to refine his own craft, and he considered Quinn's presence a gift to that production. Anthony Quinn, who portrayed Abu Tay, was another figure O'Toole recalled vividly. Tony Quinn was larger than life on the screen and off it, O'Toole said with awe. He carried himself like a conquering general. He'd thunder into a room and you'd swear the walls shook. Though their temperaments could not have been more different, O'Toole respected Quinn's ability to dominate a scene with sheer force of will. He did admit, however, that Quinn's intensity sometimes bordered on overwhelming kink. When Tony was in full flight, even the camels looked nervous. Thaying Omar Sharif, who played Sheriff Ali, became one of O'Toole's closest companions during the grueling shoot in Jordan and Morocco. Their friendship lasted for decades. Omar saved Miss Anighty out there, O'Toole recalled warmly. We were both young, both thrown into this mad, endless desert, and we found each other. He had this charm, this wit. He could make you laugh even when Thiessen was melting your brain. We shared bottles of whiskey, endless conversations, and truth be told, probably a few questionable adventures. O'Toole often credited Sharif with keeping his spirits up during the long and punishing months of filming. Their friendship, he insisted, was as important to him personally as it was to the chemistry audiences saw on screen. O'Toole also commented on Jack Hawkins, who played General Allenby. Jack was the perfect example of the English officer on and off the set. He had that bearing, that seriousness, that air of command. But what he loved most about Jack was his wicked sense of humor. He could puncture any pretension with a single line. Hawkins, O'Toole admitted, became something of a mentor figure, offering him advice not only on acting, but also on navigating sudden pressures of fame. Not all of O'Toole's memories were warm. He acknowledged that the huge egos on set occasionally to friction. We were baking in the desert, making a film no one thought would work. With a director who did the impossible, tempers flared. Friendships frayed. There were days when you thought the whole damn thing would collapse. Still, he insisted that these tensions, rather than taking away from the film, gave it an energy that translated to the screen. Of director David Lean, O'Toole was honest but respectful. Lean was brilliant, but he was also merciless. He pushed you to the edge, sometimes too far. But then you'd see the footage and you'd understand why. He was painting on the largest canvas imaginable and had demanded performances that matched it. I owe him my career, though at the time I may have cursed his name more than once. In the end, O'Toole expressed deep gratitude for the ensemble that surrounded him. You don't make a masterpiece like Lawrence on your own, he said. You need giants around you, and I had them. Alec, Tony, Omar, Jack, and the rest. They each brought something unforgettable to that desert. Whatever differences we had, whatever battles we fought, the film endures. And in the end, that's the only truth that matters. These reflections, equal parts affectionate and unpolished, reveal not only O'Toole's honesty, but also his recognition that Lawrence of Arabia was more than just a role. It was a crucible that forged his identity as an actor and connected him forever to a group of performers whose combined talents created one of cinema's greatest epics. Peter O'Toole, after a long and illustrious career that had spanned more than 5 decades, announced in July 2012 that he was officially retiring from acting. This decision came as a result of a return of stomach cancer, a condition he had battled courageously in the earlier years. O'Toole had first undergone major surgery for stomach cancer in 1976, and though he recovered and went on to continue his career with remarkable dedication, the illness eventually came back in his later years, forcing him to re-evaluate his health and priorities. In a public statement at the time of his retirement, he expressed both gratitude and sadness, acknowledging that while his passion for performing and storytelling had never gone away, the time had come for him to step away from the stage and the screen. Fans and colleagues alike respected his choice, understanding that it reflected not weakness, but rather the wisdom of a man who had given everything to his craft, and who now wished to preserve his remaining strength. His retirement marked the end of an era, as O'Toole had been one of the last towering figures of the golden age of British and Hollywood cinema. A little over a year later, the world mourned the loss of his extraordinary talent. On the 14th of December 2013, Peter O'Toole passed away at Wellington Hospital in St. John's Wood, a distinguished and historic neighbourhood in northwest London. He was 81 years old. The news of his death spread across the globe, bringing tributes from fellow actors, directors, critics, and countless fans who had been touched by his work. For many, the fact that O'Toole had lived to 81 was itself remarkable given the hard-living lifestyle he had once been famous for. His well-documented struggles with alcohol, and his earlier battles with serious illness. His passing was not only the end of a brilliant career, but also the loss of a man whose life had been as dramatic and compelling as any of the characters he portrayed on screen. The hospital where he died, Wellington, is one of London's most well-regarded private medical institutions, and it was there that he spent his final days surrounded by care. His death marked the closing chapter of a life filled with triumphs, controversies, and unforgettable contests to the art of film and theater.